Welcome to Let's Thrive and Shine Beyond Belief, the podcast that targets leaders, entrepreneurs and business owners, and really to give them an opportunity to find out that there is another way. You don't have to suffer with burnout. You don't have to suffer with imposter syndrome, and you do not need to suffer with limiting beliefs. The only thing that's limiting you is yourself, because we are all limitless. And this is why I love interviewing people like Jonathan Clark, who has gone through some of those journeys, some of those challenges, and has now learned another way and is now teaching other people to become limitless. And I have to say, hand upon heart, Jonathan has worked magic within my own business and also with myself, been able to unlock some of the limiting beliefs that I had about myself. So, and yeah, I know, touched that he is. So,
I've been called touch before. Yeah.
yeah, well, that's for different reasons, but
A
there
different
you
way. Yeah.
so Jonathan, please introduce yourself and tell us how you got to where you are right now.
Oh, good Lord. How long have you got? Jonathan Clark. I'm in Scotland. My background is NLP and hypnotherapy. Prior to that, I was a financial advisor. I used to run around the country doing 3,000 miles a month in a Vauxhall Victra in a shirt and tie, hating every minute of it. And I survived on personal development audio. Well, in my day, it was tapes, CDs. Good luck finding them. And in my university on wheels, I would be listening to personal development stuff. And I decided that I liked that stuff more than telling people which eyes are to buy. So when I left my job, I went into therapy full time as a therapist, not the client. And I built a business doing one-on-one NLP and hypnosis with people, and then eventually graduated to be a trainer in that. So I'm an NLP trainer, started running training courses, and probably for a good number of years, I was the guy in Scotland to come to for NLP. Mm-hmm. So I've worked with 5,000 people individually, mostly female, mostly on mind-body issues. Mm-hmm. And I love it. And I've written books about it, been on TV, worked with some celebrities, can't mention any names because I've signed an NDA. But yeah, I just like helping people, and I've always had that drive in me. I find it hard to see someone struggling and just stand by or walk past them. I find that difficult to deal with. So that's what I do.
Just a few things to mention, yeah. So, and it's quite interesting because I know that you are an international speaker yourself, extremely confident in that field. But that actually came from quite a strange, well, I say polar opposites in terms of when you was a much younger lad. So
100%. I couldn't read aloud in school. What the first symptom I noticed in this was you'd be doing like a Shakespeare play, right? And you've got your line and I've got my line, and Jimmy next to me's got his line. And you'd work your way down the page, and my line was getting closer and closer and closer, and my heart rate was getting faster, and I was getting hotter, and I was sweating. A couple of times I actually fainted in class, which was quite entertaining for the rest of the group, but not for me. And eventually I was just terrified of reading out loud. If the teacher said, "Jonathan, could you read the next paragraph?" I would just turn white in terror. And eventually I just started skipping classes where you had to read aloud, which is usually English and language classes, even though I was good at that stuff. By 19, I had my first job. I was going in a bus into the city, and I was vomiting and being ill on the bus, but I was totally okay going home. It was only going to work. And eventually when I had a duodenal ulcer diagnosed at age 19. So I managed to burn a hole in my stomach through fear, which is a fairly crap superpower. But it fascinated me that the mind could affect the body on a physical level. It's like you can actually damage yourself with thinking. That's unbelievable. And interestingly, my brother came out of university at the same time as me. He was older than me, and he'd read all these books on psychology and came out with a degree in it. And I get fascinated by, if I can do that to myself, can I do anything useful? It's like, could we turn that energy out the way and make it constructive? So that led to personal development. That led to Tony Robbins, NLP, hypnosis, going to Hawaii and studying shamanism. And yeah, working with lots of people to find out how people screw themselves up, because we all do.
Yeah. I mean, one of the biggest things that you mentioned there was, the word fear. you know, it has such a significant impact on so many of us.
Yeah.
I mean, I was actually talking to someone today. I was just before we got in here. It's what we were talking about, is that, you know, someone that's, you know, a really nice person, really good at what they do, but their fear is holding them back so much, and it's stopping them from being able to thrive. And that's why it's so important to be able to unlock that limiting belief, and also, you know, say goodbye to fear, because it is such a weapon, isn't it? So, but our own.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, false evidence appearing real, or something, everything and run. But yeah, fear was the one big emotion that I've struggled with the most in my life. And I know exactly where it came from. My dad used to always say, if my brother and I were having fun and having a laugh, my dad would come in and go, yeah, but you'll be crying before the night's out. And he used to say this on a daily basis. If if his wife, my mother, was having fun, anybody laughed at anything, he would say, yeah, but you'll be crying before the night's out. So there was this kind of constant suggestion of impending doom. Like, don't you dare have fun or enjoy yourself or think everything's cool, because any minute now it could go horribly wrong. Now, this comes from a guy who always talked about Black November. He always said he always got ill in November, and you would get ill in November because it was cold and it was dark and it was wet. And yeah, guess what? I got ill every November. Do you know when my dad died? Same day as Freddie Mercury, November, self-fulfilling prophecy. And that whole thing, just, that was the real fear for me. It was like, right, wait a minute, I can do more damage to myself than anybody outside can. That, hang on a minute. And most of the demons that people worry about being inadequate or not knowing enough or self-doubt, they're in here. Probably nobody's saying that to you. Probably nobody's telling you that. Your audience isn't telling you that during a talk. You're conjuring all that up yourself, and it is the death of 1,000 cuts. It's horrendous. But the good news is there are ways to deal with it.
Yeah, most definitely. And as you turn around and say, I mean, I think it's about 95% of the things that are going through in a mind are external factors, but ultimately those external factors, only one person can change how you either react or respond to those situations, and that's yourself. You ultimately have that choice. You're responsible for the choice that you make. It's trying to unlock some of the beliefs that you've got with yourself to be able to change that sort of situation. Not listen to that emotional monkey, as I like to call it.
The box of monkeys in your head. Yeah, totally. It's you do more damage to yourself, you know. And the whole thing about imposter syndrome, I like that when it comes up as a topic, because I don't believe in it. I don't think it exists. I think it's what's called a nominalization. You've turned a process into a noun. Right? There's no such thing as a relationship. There's no such thing. I've never seen one. I can't buy one. I can't fall over one. I can't put it in a box. No such thing as a relationship. There's only relating. Right? Equally, there's no such thing as imposter syndrome. There's only you thinking that you're an imposter. And that's a process. And we have a nervous system, and I don't know if you called it that. We should have been shot. The nervous system is wired. It's always nervous. The nervous system is wired to avoid pain more than go for gain. So if you deliver a great talk, for example, and you get 40 feedback sheets, I bet you've done this, you get 39 glowing bits of feedback, and there's one person that complained, and that's the one you focus on, and you ruminate and you thrash yourself over and over again. You ignore the 39 that were actually brilliant. And pain is the bigger motivator. So we tend to focus on what the threat is, because that's how our nervous system is wired. It's prehistoric, it's primal. But in the modern age, when largely we're pretty much safe where we are right now, we're warm, we're dry, and we're pretty much safe, it's an outdated piece of software that we don't need anymore. But we're living with it. So if that devil on your shoulder is continually telling you don't know enough, there's people smarter than you, who are you? Who do you think you are to even stand up and talk about this stuff? That's very, very common, that inadequacy feeling. And we don't tend to look at all the things we have actually managed to pull off successfully. All the times we were struggling and we beat it, we just focus on the negative. And that's that. And the good thing is that can be trained out of you.
And it does take practice. I mean, I know, I've done huge amount of work on myself. I know you've done huge amount of work, but you're still going to get those odd days where it's going to little whisper in your ear. But the difference is, because we're aware of it now, we go, hang on a minute. I mean, actually, someone, it was at an event the other week, and they said, you need to almost like name this inner critic, and call it something that, you know, I mean, I've actually decided to call it Kelly because I hate being called Kelly. And so if little Kelly starts whispering her voice, I now turn around and say, "Shut up, Kelly," and I could do something about it. So I've named my one. So I just thought actually that's a really good way of it, because it's just sort of like piped down, because you wouldn't let somebody else talk to yourself in the way that you talk to yourself. You wouldn't
Absolutely.
do it, you know, you just wouldn't allow it, or you wouldn't be that unkind to somebody else, but you talk to yourself like it. So,
It is that kind of self-love thing, you know. It's like, are you a cheerleader or are you a gremlin for
mm,
yourself? You know, who makes the pictures in your head? You do. Who
mm,
talks to yourself? You do. Who controls how you move and breathe your body? You do.
mm,
So it's a DIY project. No one's doing it to you. No one's psychically spiking you or sending you evil vibes. You're doing it to yourself.
mm,
So when you catch yourself and you go, hang on a minute, is running that movie in my head actually beneficial?
mm,
You know, does it help me? Does saying those things to myself help me?
yeah,
One of my favorite tricks is to get someone to listen to their internal dialogue and
mm,
notice, first of all, are you saying I or are you saying you? Like,
mm,
do you say I need to be better at that, or I'm rubbish at that? Or do you say you're better, you need to be better, you're rubbish at that? Stop it for a minute and go, right, wait a minute, hang on, what's it saying? And flip it to the opposite.
mm,
So if you're using I, change it to you and watch what happens. It changes how it feels. So it's
mm,
a tiny little distinction that makes all the difference. And also, is it talking to you in questions or is it talking to you in statements?
yeah,
Is it giving you commands or is it actually asking you questions?
yeah,
You stop and go, I don't know, is it asking me a question? Yes. Just stop for it. Stop this, slow down the tape and go, what's actually going on inside of myself? And start taking control of it.
mm, yeah, yeah. And the interesting thing is that, I mean, you know, I'm part of a speaker academy, and one of the things, quite often the audience will ask Andy a question, and they will say, like, you know, they'll use the phrase you over and over again. He's going, no, I, as
Mm-hmm.
in, you know, and he'd flip it back and he'd go,
Mm-hmm.
no, you. And he said, no, because he said, this isn't my problem.
Yeah.
It's yours. Own your problem.
Yeah.
It's like, don't throw it away.
Yeah.
I do this. So when you talk to me, that's what you should be saying, is that I do this, not put everybody else under that generalized bracket. And
Mm-hmm.
it's true, because quite often we throw it out as if it's, you know, you're having this problem, but it's not. It's that I'm having this problem. I need to do something about this. So it's like,
Correct.
take ownership of it and deal with it. So,
And I'd also add to that,
yeah.
change this to that,
Yes.
because this is here,
Yeah.
that is over there. So it's like I
Yeah.
keep doing this,
Mm,
it's too close. Whereas I
mm,
keep doing that, it
mm.
starts to push it away.
Yeah.
And again, you go, well, that's just semantics, that's just playing with language. Actually, you are the world's best hypnotherapist for you,
Hmm.
right? You give yourself hypnotic suggestions all day long, and quite often they are negative.
Yeah.
So stop that and start giving yourself useful, positive suggestions. And anytime you catch yourself being a critic to yourself,
Mhm.
just stop it for a minute and reword it. And that's the first step in starting to retrain your brain.
Yeah, yeah, to reframing it. I think the person I learnt that off of, and I absolutely love the book, it was like a game changer for me, was Shad Helmsetter's, you know, what to say when we talk to
You talk
ourselves.
to yourself, yeah,
It's
yeah,
so powerful. And,
yeah,
you know, I mean, I am by and large an extremely positive person and got a very positive mindset. And it's just like, well, you know, if things happen, they happen. What do I learn from it has been my mindset. Even before I suffered all the burnout and all those kind of things, I had that mindset. But unbeknownst to me, is I didn't realize that even when I'm joking about things, because your brain has no sense of humor, there is black and white, you know, it's just, it is one or the other. So when you make a joke, and I used to quite often because I was in a team of men, I would make a disparaging comment about joking about myself, because I'm taking power of the situation and not allowing someone to do it first. So I would then make this joke. But what I didn't realise is that, one, I'm reinforcing it in my own head. And two, I'm also reinforcing it to them and saying that's acceptable behaviour. And
yeah,
it's not acceptable behaviour. I should be
yeah,
just calling it out and saying, don't talk to me like that. The irony of it is that I wouldn't allow them to talk to my female members of my team like it. I'd go, oi, why don't you,
yeah,
you know,
yeah, yeah,
speak to her
yeah.
like that? Yeah, I'd allow it myself and do it myself.
We are all our own harshest critic,
Yes.
you know, or we can be our own evangelist, you know.
Mm.
And I'm not talking about deluding yourself and talking yourself. You sometimes see on these like Britain's Got Talent or these kind of talent shows where people come up and you think this person's completely delusional because they can't sing, they can't dance, they're horrendous, but they've got so much self-belief. You know, I'm not talking about kidding yourself on that everything's great when it's not, but
Yeah.
it is about hang on a minute, forgive yourself for being where you currently are, go easy on yourself, and start being kinder to yourself. You know, there's enough harshness and danger in the world without you adding to it.
Indeed, definitely. So, I mean, obviously now, I mean, you help so many people now in so many different ways. Uh, and many of them is sort of like, helping them to create different streams of revenue and, marketing. But also part of that is introducing sort of NLP. So not teaching it on a deeper level, but utilizing it as part of your training that you do in marketing.
Yeah.
How do you think that actually helps many of your clients where you introduce the two elements really? So.
It's a weird one because for me, NLP was the big turnaround point. That was the tool of choice that I really attributed a lot of change to. I just loved it because I'd never seen it fail, and every time, and it was fast. I mean, the phobia cure was known to be like 10 minutes long. It's 10 minutes long if you do the couple of hours preparation up front, but it was still fast. Clients would come in, they'd had an addiction to painkillers for 30 years, and an hour later it's gone. And that for me was like, oh, that is great. I remember I stood in the queue round the block to go and see Star Wars in 1977. And I remember when Obi-Wan says to the stormtroopers, "These aren't the droids you're looking for." And the stormtrooper goes, "These aren't the droids we're looking for," and walks away. I remember thinking, I'd love to be able to do that. I'd love to. Somebody goes, "I'm depressed." You go, "No, you're not." And NLP was the closest I saw to that being reality, and hypnosis. And it's not the hypnosis that you see in a stage show. It's slightly different from that. But to be able to talk to someone and have their beliefs, behaviors, and emotions change within minutes, sometimes faster. That for me was like, that's brilliant. That is so useful. And I teach and train it, but by the time you explained how the phobia cure works, you could have done it.
Yeah.
So I would rather just do it, because at the end of the day, the client doesn't care about the process. They just want the problem to go away. So if you make the problem go away, they're quite happy. So I think there's certain. I remember Tom Cruise was interviewed on a red carpet once, and I liked what they said. He was asked about Scientology because that always gets brought up with Tom Cruise. And he said something really great. He said, "It's a series of mental tools that make my life easier." And I thought, I like that. That's what I'm going to use about NLP. It's a series of mental tools that make my life easier, because it does. And so there are certain life skills that I think, and some certain NLP models are life skills, and they should be taught to everybody. Kids should learn them in school. So I share them with my business owner clients, my coaching clients, because I know it's going to help them. Especially around languaging. Obviously, all marketing is basically language and psychology. Saying what you need to say to the right person at the right time so they can make an informed decision about whether they want to buy it or not. So language is really important, and how to think in a useful way. The whole promise of NLP was that if anyone in the world is world class at something, then you can learn how to do it as well. So I studied with a world kickboxing champion who was a tall, skinny guy with glasses. And I got to my almost black belt before the club folded, but I got through my training really quickly because I was training one-on-one with the world kickboxing champion. You cannot not, do well with that. I worked with a police marksman who was putting bullets through the same hole at 150 meters, and now so can I. Not that I particularly want to. But if I see anybody who's going to really do it, I'm going to grab onto them and go, right, I want to know how you do that. Teach me how to do that. And I can do it in record time rather than spending 20 years, the traditional way. So if there's a way that I can help a business owner or a professional person think in an empowering way, then why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you?
Well, and the thing is that most of the success of people within business, and in fact, we was only talking about that earlier, is because of the mindset of someone and their limiting beliefs. So, and as you've often described, is that there's so many really excellent, qualified coaches, trainers, and everything like that,
Yep.
that are hidden from the
Yep.
world because
Yep.
they don't know how to get out there, and they don't know how to get out there because of their lack of confidence in themselves, not because their products are any good, you know.
Yep.
Yeah, so that's
I'm
right.
working,
Yeah.
I'm working with a lady right now who is she actually went to a special school in our home country for gifted youngsters. She's trained at Stanford. She's got credentials falling out of her head, but she doesn't see it. She doesn't see it, and she's continually headhunted. People try and grab her all the time because of what she can do, but she doesn't get that. It's remarkable to watch. And I'm currently working with her on, turning that around a little bit and getting her to. One of my coaches once said to me that I didn't revere what I did, and I had to go and look up what that word meant. What does that mean? You're not holding what you know and what you can do in high enough regard, right? You're kind of dismissing it or putting it down. And that's the whole thing about imposter syndrome. You feel inadequate, or you feel as if you're a fraud. That's the big one. Wait till they find out what I'm really like. My answer to that is you are the sperm that won. Of the 300 million sperm that went down that tube that day, you're the one that made it. So you're already in the top 10%, right? That fingerprint, there's never been one like that. There never will be one like that. That is the only one there'll ever be. You are 100% unique. So you bring that to the table. Bring your lived experience, bring your knowledge. That's what a coaching client's really buying, is your take on things. And that's what will attract a coaching client to a particular coach, is their particular view on things. And ultimately the mark of a good coach is the client, that is the results the clients get.
Yes.
If the clients are continually getting success, that's a good coach, in my opinion. It's not about the qualifications, it's not about all that. It's about, is the client getting what they want? That's what it's all about. So my job is to help the client get what they want. And I'll use any tool in the toolkit. And I've just spent years grabbing as many tools as I could, so that if I've got a flat screwdriver and it's a star-shaped screw and I don't know what to do, then I'm not very useful to anybody. If I've got a big repertoire, I can grab any of the tools I need. And that's why I became obsessed with just learning all this stuff. I'm not a know-it-all, I'm a learn-it-all.
And I know what you mean, because I'm like you. I love, I love learning. I do love learning, and I find it fascinating about different subjects. I was only listening to something this morning, and they're actually talking about, one of the women was talking about the fact that most of the stuff that's around mental health is all done on men. And the reason why they do it on men is because where women have cyclical, whether it's their monthlies, whether it's going through pregnancy, going through menopause, all those things, because there's such a cyclical cycle with them, they're not the same person in terms of the way that which they think and behave and all those kind of things from day to day. Whereas when they do an assessment and evaluation with men, they can do it in several days, whereas with women, they have to do it over a month, so it takes longer. And it was actually banned, I don't know whether it was in the US, but banned up until 1993, any experiments around mental health not to be done on women.
Wow.
Which is fascinating, which means that any of the evaluations that we've got around mental health and well-being is flawed, because it's targeting purely men.
For half the population. Yeah.
And then you've obviously taken it on the transgender side of it. That's a whole different. It's starting to improve, but then also when you talk about business, everything is set up in business based on men. The way in which they work, the way in which they function, their clocks, their body clock, all those kind of things. It's all set around them. It's not saying nothing should be based on men, because it should be sort of male energy and female energy, but those kind of things. But without learning those kind of things, we're not opening our minds and understanding people. When you start understanding people and the way in which they work, then it makes the world a better place, because it does prevent things like the burnout and all those kind of things. The imposter imposter syndrome, all of those things that actually channel us. Without that learning, how can we grow?
Well, there was a concerted effort to wipe out a lot of the ancient teachings. The Spanish Inquisition wiped out half of Spain's population. 50% of Spain's population were taken out. The Boston missionaries arrived in Hawaii and banned everything Hawaiian on the spot. And everything over there was illegal until 1988. We've lived in that kind of masculine-driven society for thousands of years, and it takes all the complementary alternative people to actually bring back stuff that we knew hundreds of years ago, and we discover, oh, that actually helps quicker than booking an appointment with CAM or waiting 6 months on a waiting list. If you look at, there's so many systems that are done that way. That medicine, the biomedical model that we live based on, is based on pathology, and pathology is the way things dissolve and rot and die. Right? It's all about warfare, the invading killer T cells and boosting the immune system against the viruses that are invading you. Stuff. It's all warfare analogies. Where does that come from? In ancient China, the doctor in the village was paid an income for every well family.
Yeah.
So it was doctor's best interest to keep everyone in the village well, and he stopped getting money from any family that wasn't well. It's not how it works in this country. The more people who are sick, the more money goes to the NHS. And there's lots of systems like that. But the whole thing about imposter syndrome for me is about, be very, very careful that you don't take a behavior and turn it into your identity.
Yeah.
For me to say, my name is Jonathan and I'm an alcoholic, that's different from, my name is Jonathan, I drink too much too often. That's two different things. And the behavior one is much easier to change than the identity one is. So many people give up smoking and then they start smoking again, because in their head, I'm still a smoker.
Okay. Yeah.
Right. Read Psychocybernetics by Maxwell Maltz. So, people getting plastic surgery in the early days, and despite the fact that they were physically different, their dysmorphic thoughts in their head were showing them that they were still the same. Telling an anorexic girl that she's fine the way she is isn't going to change how she feels, right? Because it's not about what you think; it's about what she thinks. So it all starts on here. But I think we're all confident in certain contexts. Right? Put me in certain contexts, I can top the legs off a donkey. Put me in certain other contexts, I am useless. I'm completely useless. So to say that, oh, well, I'm an imposter. No, I'm just in a context where I'm not confident.
Yeah.
Simple as that. Put me in another context, I can be a rock star, but it needs to be the right context. And we're all like that. We all have skills and strengths, and we all have weak areas, and that's fine. But if you've spent hours studying your topic, you've got lived experience in it, you've got qualifications in it, or you're just naturally good at it. Some people are just naturally gifted at painting or drawing or making music, whatever, God-given talents. Why wouldn't you revere that? All the rest of it is just man-made nonsense. It's just that critical chatter in your head that is not serving you. And that's what it's all about. It's changing that. I think I saw a woman the other day, Dr. Valerie Young, has founded an entire institute on imposter syndrome. I thought she's built an entire business on purely imposter syndrome, which I don't think exists. I think it's, no, you're either strong or you're not in that context. Yeah. Simple as that. And if you're not strong in that context, you can learn the skills. I couldn't read out loud in school. To close that loop, I couldn't read out loud in school. So I deliberately, in my day job in the civil service, when they said, right, we're going to teach this new computer system and we need people to teach it to everybody else, I went, I'll do it.
Yeah.
Put me in front of a flip chart, in front of a room full of my peers, and I will hate every minute of it and I'll be bricking it. But you know what? It'll force me to learn to be strong in front of an audience. And then I went on to do public speaking stuff and NLP stuff and blah, blah, blah. I remember going to see a Bon Jovi concert at Hampden Stadium in Glasgow. And I remember thinking, I could handle this audience. And I was like, whoa, where did that come from? Because that's totally different from 20, 30 years ago, So yeah, I love it. Put me on the stage. I love it. I love it. And that's completely opposite to where I was. But I am a very private person. I am an introvert. If you put me on any Myers-Briggs profiling tool, it'll tell you I'm a strong introvert. But I've learned how to perform. I've learned how to stand up there and run the room. But it's technique and practice.
Yeah.
And the good thing is anybody can learn. I do a 2-day presentation skills course where I take people who are like complete mice and we have them run the room in 2 days. Yeah. But they're using a recipe. They're using processes. They've learned the way to do that. And
Yeah.
that's the thing that excites me. There are entire areas of human endeavor that I know nothing about. But if I find someone who's good at it, I can model them and I can actually learn those skills and start duplicating their results really, really quickly. So that could be a business person, it could be a marketing person, it could be a world-class therapist, it could be a world-class martial artist, a world-class sniper, it could be anything. If you want to be good at something, find someone who's already good at it and immerse yourself in their values, their beliefs, their strategies, and you will quickly accelerate your progress. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. And then if it helps you, you can say forevermore that you learn from a master. Right? I learned from the world kickboxing champion at the time. The guy was amazing. And I think that's the other thing about imposter syndrome. If you're worrying about I'm a fraud or I'm inadequate or I don't know enough or little old me, you're thinking about you. And that's the problem. You should be thinking about your audience. You should be thinking about your client. It's all about the client. It isn't about you. And if it is about you, you're very quickly going to turn it back to the audience again.
Yeah.
So if I tell a story from my past, I'm going to go, well, the reason you need to know that is, or the learning I want you to take from that is, right? Marketing is all about the client. So when you focus on their needs, their issues, their headaches, their problems, it's no longer about you at all. And that gets rid of all that stuff completely. Stop talking about you, start talking about who you're trying to serve.
Yeah. Yeah, and that is such an important thing. I mean, especially when you're talking about doing speaking engagements and you're sharing what it is. So I quite like you, I do all the training around coaching with others, and quite often, you know, they're doing their story and they really struggle on their story. And I said, but why are you telling this anyway? That's because it's not relevant to the audience. I said, what's your, you know, what is it you do as a business? And they say what it is. And I said, well, that what you're telling, I said, whilst it's tragic and sad, and you know, I you know, my heart goes out to you, the audience doesn't care. The only thing they're interested in finding out is how you're going to be able to serve them. Now, your story might contain something where you've had a problem and they recognize that problem. You've had a sort of eureka moment where you've gone, well, okay, I want to do something about this, so I'm going to do something about it. And now you've resolved that and you're now helping others. So they want to see that journey. That's what they're interested in. They don't care about your history, especially when you go on and on and on about it. And they're like, kill me now, I'm bored.
Yeah. It's like who? No one cares about Jonathan. No one wants to know my life story in the slightest. We've got a client at the moment who's about to publish it. We're about to help him publish a book, and it's all about his story. And I said, well, with all due love and respect, apart from your friends, family, and colleagues, who's going to buy it? Because really, who cares? Unless it's more of a personal development book where it's like, okay, guiding principles or lessons learned, or you know, how to walk in the footsteps of someone who's already done it. That might sell better. But honestly, apart from your friends and family, who wants a book about you? That old adage from the 70s about we all listen to one radio station, WIIFM, what's in it for me? We're always only interested. You are, I am, we all are interested in how is this going to benefit me? If you're sharing pictures of your lunch on Facebook, nobody cares apart from you. But if you showed me a stretching exercise that gets rid of backache, or you showed me a tool that I can go and use to get my job done quicker, I'm going to follow your Facebook page. So it's all about that. That's the meaning of value. You hear this all the time about, oh, you must deliver value. Well, value to whom? Value to the client. Not because you think it's valuable. It's because the client might find it valuable, right? That's what it's all about. And the more you make it about your client, the more you make it about your audience, the end user, the less important you become. And you become like the human Google. You become the messenger of hope that is bringing resources, tools, hacks, strategy, whatever it is you teach, whatever it is you've got to share, however you want to help people. That's what they want. That's what they need. Yeah, you can talk a little bit about yourself. So if it was a story, for example, as long as they can resonate with the story, as long as you're talking about they're in the same struggle as you have been, but you got out of it. They're in the quicksand. You've been in the quicksand and you know how to get out of the quicksand. Then they're going to be interested in it.
Yeah.
As long as it resonates with them. So it's always think about that. It's not about you, it's about them. Always. And then you don't matter.
Yeah.
And the whole thing about being a fraud goes away.
Yeah, exactly. And your confidence will shine out with it as well, because the more people go, oh, you know, I really resonate with that. And it's really good to see that you've come out the other side and that you are able to do this. Plus, it also gives people confidence that there is another way. I mean, this is precisely why I'm doing this, is because there's so many people that have gone through these learned, lived experiences. And when they're able to then share that with the audience, and there will be different tips, different strategies. And as you say, different people will resonate with different people in different ways. And what might be right for one person might not be for another. So they might listen to you and go, absolutely, he's absolutely the person that I want to talk to. There might be another one say, not my flavour, which is fine, because it means that they're not your right tribes.
You'll attract the clients that are right. I don't get Keely's clients, and Keely doesn't get Jonathan's clients. Yeah. We get the clients that are right for us. And if you are going to tell a story, we've got several clients. There was a famous incident that happened in Glasgow, for example, a few years ago, called the Clutha disaster. And everybody who lives in Glasgow knew about it. The Clutha is a little pub, a little one-story pub that sits right beside the River Clyde. And one night, a police helicopter's engine died, and they were plummeting straight down. They tried to get it into the river, but when a helicopter dies, a helicopter goes straight down. And it came straight through the roof of a packed Saturday night pub with whirling motor blades, and the place was wall-to-wall people. And it was an absolute carnage. And one of the people who managed to crawl out was one of my clients. And he came out and he put his jacket on this girl that was blood-stained and in shock and stuff, and put her in the ambulance. And he went home, went to bed. And the next day went to work, because that's what you do after a major disaster. Never thought about it. The post-traumatic stress disorder hit him about a week later. He ended up going through a whole bunch of mental health stuff. He now, and this is the great part, he now teaches mental health for men in corporates. And this is where the story bit is relevant. If I've got 5 people who are going to talk about mental health, and I'm talking to one of the few people who crawled out of the Clutha disaster and helped other people and is perfectly sane, do you think I might hire him as opposed to one of the other 4? I've got a client who's, I made the mistake of saying he's an ex-Marine, because once you're a Marine, you're always a Marine. And he quickly reminded me of that. But this guy used to get catapulted off an aircraft carrier. One of the ways that they deploy Marines is they put you in the aircraft carrier catapult and fire you off the aircraft carrier. No parachute. None of that. You're not even in a chair. They just fire, and you're in the water, off you go, because Marines are quite good swimmers. I didn't know they did that. My God. Now, if I was talking about getting a fitness trainer, and I've got 5 fitness trainers in front of me, one of them is an ex-Navy SEAL, who am I going to hire? So your story then becomes, your origin story then becomes part of your brand. It then becomes part of why I should talk to you, right? Again, 5 people who are selling diabetic help. One of them is a diabetic. Who am I going to listen to? Right? So lived experience, so many people who've been wounded and damaged by life and all the stuff that life can throw at you, and we can throw at ourselves, who then become healed. But a number of them then become healers. And that's when your story is 1,000% relevant, because only you can tell it. And at that point, you're back to the unique fingerprint again. You're the only person with that story. Every major guru, Brendan Bashar tells a story about the car crash and he's bleeding out on the bonnet of his car. Tony Robbins tells a creation story about him doing his dishes in the bath in Santa Monica. All the great gurus have their creation stories. Zig Ziglar used to sell door to door. So should you. You should be telling your story, which uniquely qualifies you to be the one to give advice and to give help and to give benefit of lived experience. That's when it's relevant. And no one else has your story. So stop comparing yourself to other people and go like, well, I know because I was there, and it's like, well, done deal.
And I mean, actually, a prime example of that, John, is that I did that community project last year, and I had to go to the parish council and then present my story, present my project to them. And one of the guys in the room said, well, why would we listen to you? Why would we pick you? And I said, right, okay then. I said, 2020, explained what went on, the burnout, the journey that I went through, how I come out the other side, what I'm doing now. And I said, and this is how I'm now teaching my clients. And he went, that's exactly what I wanted to hear. Thank you.
Yes, fair enough. Case closed.
Case done. He said, I don't want someone that studied psychology for 6 years, has never had any lived experience and doesn't have a clue. And he said, and just hands out medication and just sits and listens to me. That's not what I want. I've had it before. It doesn't work. What I want is someone that's going to be able to help through their lived experiences. And that's what it's about, isn't it? It's people will listen to those that have either gone through the journey themselves or evidence through case studies where they've helped other people go through journeys and help them to resolve it. You know, that's what they want to hear. So
we both know a lady who teaches cybersecurity and child safety online, who was abducted as a little girl. Case closed. I'd like qualified to the hilt. I don't need to talk to anybody else. And it's not about her qualifications. It's about her lived experience. You talk to her about safety. I think she knows a thing or two about it, So tunneling lemons into lemonade, however you want to look at it. You're one of a kind. And if you've got a good story to it and they can help you craft a good story, and you tell that story everywhere you go, we're moving away from the stiff corporate entity. Social media largely caused this. We're now talking about companies being made up of people. And after post-COVID and lockdown, we're missing that connection. We're missing that energetic lock with people. So when you tell your story, you are bonding and you're forming those connections, and you're also proving your qualification, why they should listen to you, why you are the authority in this particular niche. Your lived experience is just as valid as anybody else's. And the minute the general thing that human beings do is we look at other people and we compare ourselves to other people. That starts in school when little Johnny was on book 5 and I was in book 4. So I felt inadequate to Johnny. And my friend Fred's on book 3. So I feel I'm going to dumb myself down so I don't, make Fred feel bad. And all that stuff and class systems and all that man-made rubbish. We now look at other people, oh, she's prettier than me, or he's smarter than me, or he's stronger than me. Okay, you'll always find someone who's better at you in some context. You'll also find somebody who's also in a worse position than you in some context. The self to other comparison is always a recipe for pain. Always. It should be self to self. Where am I now compared to last month, last year? Your highest and best version of you is the only useful benchmark. Am I better off now than I was a year ago? If I am, I'm on the right track. If I'm not, and I can accelerate that by finding world-class people who are good at what they do and modeling them. That will do what Tony Robbins talks about, compressing decades into days.
And the right thing there is it's about modeling, not comparing. And that's a completely different thing, because there is always going to be people that have got skills that you're never going to have, all the while you got a hole in various locations. But you are not going to be able to do it. I know some people, like with the festival that I go to, there are some of them, they're like child prodigy guitarists. They are sensational. And yet there'll be another guy that's been there, been playing for 50 years. And they could have played every single day. They're still never going to be as good as these people, because that's, they've just got that natural skill. However, the person they can compare themselves with is the person that they have improved along the line. And you can see that change, and you can then say to them, I hear the difference between you last year, the year before that. So congratulate yourself. Stop beating yourself up that you're not them. Why don't you just congratulate yourself on to where you've actually got to right now? So
100%. You should absolutely keep an achievement list. Keep somewhere. I've got it in my diary. I see every single day all the things that I've achieved in life, and I just keep adding to it. There's a couple of mental techniques where you can imagine walking down a corridor, and on either side of the walls are images of previous achievements that you've had, or successes or wins or breakthroughs or whatever. You should flood your mind with that kind of stuff, because you've sat before an event or before a happening completely full of fear, completely full of doubt, and wondering how bad it's going to be, and running all these dark scenarios. And you have always so far come out the other side going, I'm glad that's over, and you survived it, right? This too shall pass. So think about that. There's always light at the end of the tunnel. What's that phrase about it ain't over? What is it? There's a great phrase about that. I need to try and remember what it is. If it's something about it's not over yet. I can't remember this. I'll find the phrase. But you're not done yet. You're not done yet. You're here. You've got more stuff to do, and there's so much more stuff to learn.
Mm.
And if you're not as great at a particular skill as you want to be, well, either jettison it or find someone who's a role model and model them and get better at it. You don't have to be the best in the world. People don't, it's interesting, you go on LinkedIn, people don't go, do you know the best public speaking trainer on the planet? They don't ask for that. They go, do you know a good public speaking trainer? So you don't have to be the best on the planet, but always strive to be good at what you do. And you'll attract people with your origin story who are drawn to that. And that's that for me, you know, if your diary's full, who cares what anyone else is doing?
Yeah. And actually on the note of the speaker trainer, sometimes they actually like the fact that you're not that far away from where they've come from, because it shows that they can achieve what you're doing. You know, if you've come from, say, I mean, if you talk about myself, 2020, I was in the corporate world for 23 years. Like you, I'm fantastic doing workshops. Give me a workshop on anything, I'm in my element. But if you, as a executive, you have to go and do conferences and presentations, it was my idea of hell. I hated it. I was terrified. I used to get sweaty palms. If I was in a meeting, you know, where it was like a board full of like loads of people staring at me, I couldn't even put sugar inside my cup. It would like just end up all over the table. It was hilarious. But now I passionately love it. I love teaching other people as well. And I get an excitement and joy from it. And I like seeing the journey that other people are taking it. And quite often having those conversations with individuals and say, that's right, I was here 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And it then gives them more of a reality, as opposed to someone that's been doing it for 20 years and they're going, well, I'm never going to be like you. You're a genius at it, you know.
I used to say on all my NLP courses, if I was teaching NLP training, I would always have some of my previous students there as assistants. And I would always say to the audience, the difference between me and my assistants is a few months or a few years and a lot of practice. The difference between them and you is about a year and a few months and a few bit of practice. You know, so I learned that from martial arts training. You know, in martial arts, doesn't matter what art you do, people would look at the next belt as being this like Herculean quest of 1,000 challenges. And I used to break it down and say, well, actually, for your next belt, you need 2 blocks, 2 kicks, and a knife defense. And if you learn those 5 things, you'll get your next belt. And you can see everybody in the room would relax. They would go, like, oh, thank God for that. So I learned very early on, if you're going to teach something, break it down, make it simple, make it easy, make it fun, and never lose sight of the fact that you were a rookie once.
Yeah.
You know, I think adults forget what it's like to be a child. And I remember watching people thinking, you don't remember what it's like to be a kid anymore. And I hope I never forget. One of these, I still think I'm 17 in my head. Is I don't want to ever forget that. And I think a lot of adults do, and they become very stiff upper lip and just weird. And I've got a great relationship with my son because he and I have exactly the same mentality. He's 18 and I am in my head. So we go on fantastic. I've kind of lost my train of thought there. What were we talking about?
We was talking about the fact that you could have someone that's a year away from you in your own experience.
Yeah. So don't get so, I think Zig Ziglar said, the problem starts when people's heads stop growing and they start swelling. You know, it's like you get the arrogant. I went to a ninjutsu class and a proper ninja training school. And I remember we were all lined up and he said, you're the black belt, you're the yellow belt, you're the beginner, you mean nothing. And I was like, actually, I'm the future of your club, but I don't think there's enough room in this building for your ego and mine. And I left. So that's no way to talk to a beginner. You're nothing. It's like, whoa. You know, he was ex-SAS, he had a big scar down his chest, and he was fond of telling war stories. And I'm like, that's not why I'm here. And none of these stories are relevant to what we're doing. So I'm out, you know. But if you remember what it's like to be the novice, and you relate to that and you tell your story about that stage. You know, when I learned this is what I did, and this is how I got it wrong, you know, and here's what I did to fix it. You're not being that super trainer. I hate that. I hate people on stage who are one person on stage and they're completely different off stage. I could name you a major personal development guru who we had here as a guest once in Scotland. And when I drove her to the venue, I was shocked at what she was like off stage. And then she went on stage, I'll bring. And it's like, oh yeah, very good. Where was she half an hour ago? So I think you should be the same person on stage as you are off.
Yeah.
Right, you shouldn't just super trainer suit or your lucky rabbit's foot in your bra. That's what I do. You should be the same person on stage as you are off, and that way people can approach you off stage. They know they're not getting a false version, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not about putting on a false version. I remember on my trainer's training, we had a guy who was 4'5" and desperately trying to be Tony Robbins, and he was lowering his voice and he was trying to, and he asked for feedback, and I said, "Do you want my honest feedback, or do you want me just to tell you what you want to hear?"
Yeah.
He said, "Give me your honest feedback." I said, "You ain't Tony Robbins. Stop trying. Tony's Tony. You're not. Be
Yeah.
you." And he went red and he was enraged and he was, didn't talk to me for 3 days. And then gradually over the course of the training, you saw him just being him.
Yeah.
And it went so much better. And everybody
Yeah.
loved it. He got so much praise and feedback. And at the end, he shook my hand and said, "Thanks for that." And I went, "Well, I wasn't really sure. Wasn't sure what you wanted me to say." But he needed to hear it,
Yeah.
Don't try and be somebody else, and don't try and put on the false mask that you think. I used to do it all the time. I used to try and be the guy that I thought they wanted to see.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's hard work. It's bloody hard work. Don't do that. Just be you. And some folk will like it. Some folk won't like it.
Yeah.
I'm only interested in the ones who do.
Yeah.
Don't like it. Well, sorry. Goodbye. There's the door.
That's your problem. Yeah. And I mean, in fact, it's that I was on a like a podcast with a number of girls, different ages, and it was the whole point. It was talking about empowering women, but also through the ages. Me being the oldest, so
Surely
I
not.
was the oldest in that room. Surely not. Yeah, but the young lady sitting next to me, she was like 24 years old, very, very talented young lady. The way she carries herself is very professional anyway. And she was talking about the fact that, when she was on social media, she's got this professional demeanor, and then she's then got on a personal demeanor. And I was like, why? And she said, "Oh, well, and I said, no. I said, be who you are." I said, the second you stop being who you are, I said, one, if you're doing it because you want your clients to see you, or people potentially being your clients to see you in a certain way, I said, when you do show up, they're going to go, well, that's not who I signed up to.
Yeah. Yeah.
I said, so you've got all of this professional demeanor and you're wearing this certain outfits and all that lot, which is not who you are. So when you do rack up and you're wearing, which is smart, I might add anyway. And I said, and you're always, the way you articulate yourself is always professional. So I said, so just be who you are. And I said, and if people don't like you, that's their problem. And I said, and they're not your clients. All the while you're trying to be someone else, then you're going to end up working with people that you don't want to work with, which is then not going to be healthy for you, and it's not going to be healthy for them. So in the end, you end up burnt out and tired because you're trying to be someone you're not. And that is exhausting.
Same in romantic relationships. You try being the guy or the girl that you think they want, but you know what? Eventually, they're going to see past the mask. You're going to let it slip, and they're going to find out who they're really in bed with, and it's a whole different ballgame. So you'd be better just being you and finding out early on. But that's the thing we do again in all these kind of social customs and taboos that mankind has created. We've got all these. You've got a mask for one person, a different face for somebody else. It is exhausting, and that is another contributor to burnout. Or the other one that I see a lot is somebody who does feel like they're not genuinely good at what they do, or they're inadequate, or they're a fraud, or whatever. So what they do is they overcompensate, and they study more, and they get more qualifications, and they get better qualification, and it's like drive, tiger mum kind of mentality, and they burn out. They burn out trying to convince themselves that they are actually any good, Everybody else is going, you're already qualified to the hilt. Why on earth did you need another, your third PhD? What are you trying to prove? So it's there's nothing as queer as folk. It's about balance, ultimately, are you physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually in a good place? The big four: physical, emotional, mental, spiritual. And everything that you do should balance those four. If it's at the cost of any of those four, that's not balance. That's not, if you have to shave your hair off, change your name, and renounce money to join the cult, that's a cult. That's not personal development. That's not evolution or spiritual enlightenment. That's somebody with an agenda. It should add to your health. It should add to your money. It should add to your relationships. It should add to your energy. It should add to your life purpose and mission. And anything that doesn't, you need to think seriously about it. If you think twice about it, because it's probably not right for you. If you're here to do what you're here to do. And you may not know what that is, but the funny thing is, you're actually looking at it. People say, "Oh, I'm looking for my purpose in life." Well, look down, because you're actually walking it. You're actually on it right now. And you are here to learn. You are here to discover. Your conscious mind is here to discover what your higher self already knows. It's interesting that it gets deleted at birth. So who came up with that model? I'm going to give you a life purpose, but I'm going to hide it from you when you're born. So you're going to spend the rest of your life trying to figure out what it is. That's just cruel. But some of us get it. Some of us don't get it.
Yeah.
But it's about the journey and it's about the path. God, I've gone all philosophical on you.
No, because I mean, purpose is a key element of what it is that I teach. And the fact that I found it is that I'm now me 365 days a year instead of 2 weeks of the year, because I'm no longer trying to be somebody else. I am me. And what you see is what you get. And if you don't like it, that's your problem, not mine.
Correct.
And I feel so much better for it.
Yeah. Oh, it's just easier. It's just so much easier.
Yeah, most definitely. So I can't believe what the time is actually. I mean, this is far longer than anticipated, but not unexpected, I suppose.
I know, because we like to talk.
Yeah, well, both of us are not renowned, are we, from being quiet and shy. So
wallflowers.
I think you've probably covered most of them already. But if you had three key tips that you would give to the listeners, what would they be?
I wrote this down because I knew you'd ask me about this. I think, I have kind of gone over them already. First of all, fear of failure, fear of screwing up, fear of getting it wrong. One of the presuppositions of NLP that I really took to heart was there's no such thing as failure, there's only feedback. And that's a phrase you've maybe heard and you think it's a clever one-liner, but when you actually, I think the American word is grok. When you grok it, which basically means you take it from being a clever one-liner and actually make it part of who you are. When you really get that you always generate an outcome, it may not be the outcome you want, but you always generate an outcome. Learn from what you generate and alter your approach. Right, so have another go at it. If you throw the hoop on the at the nail and it misses, right, we'll step a bit closer, try it again. Oh look, babies don't get one shot at walking and then you kick them out. No, you let them keep trying until they get there. So people think it's either fail or succeed. I did a little post about this the other day. People think it's a Y-shaped junction. I either fail or succeed. No, it's fail, succeed.
Yes.
It's a straight line. It's like hurdles on a track. You fail, then you succeed. So it's not failure is not an event and it's not a person. It's a result. Learn from your result, go at it again, you'll always get better. Second point is stop trying to compensate by overachieving. Because if you do that and you're continually striving to be the best at what you do, I had a girl end up in a wheelchair doing that. Balance yourself out with things like reading, hobbies, creativity, meditation, exercise, whatever else you do. Start being kinder to yourself, start listening to that internal dialogue and change I to you and you to I. And the other big point is it's not about you at all. It's about the client or it's about the audience. Talk about their needs, their problems, their desires, their hopes, their stuff. And you just become the guide. You become the trusted counsel. You're no longer trying to prove that you're good at what you do. You're just there as the advisor and the coach. And that's just way easier. Yeah. And that would be my 3 tips.
Thank you. Yeah, and fantastic tips that they are. So, and so much that we can learn from those as well. So, thank you ever so much. So, I have one more question, and I know you've got so many books that are under your belt. So therefore, I'm not going to ask you to recommend your book. I'd like you to recommend a book that you think would be good for the listeners. Right. And it could be a book, it could be an audio or a podcast. So yeah.
That's a very good. I would actually look at I can't remember the name of the author. I would look at the Source Book of Magic. The Source Book of Magic, and I think it was by L. Michael Hall. Letter L. Michael Hall. I think the Source Book of Magic is an NLP book, and it's a book of NLP interventions. And I literally used to have it behind me in my chair, and I would say, "So, Mr. Client, what's the problem?" The client would tell me what the problem was, and I would go, "Great, close your eyes. Right, what script do I need for this one? Okay, and open your eyes." And the client would go, "It's gone." I go, "Really? That's cool." And eventually I learned the scripts, and that's how I got started my NLP career. Then one day I thought I better go and get trained in this stuff. But this Source Book of Magic is full of direct interventions for particular issues. And they work. So if you want like the short, sharp intervention that's going to change how you think, grab that book because it's fully good. It's also the one NLP book that actually tells you what technique to use when. because
Right.
no other NLP book ever tells you what tool for what job. That one does.
Yeah. Right. Okay then. Yeah. I like that. So I'll check that out
Check
out
it out.
myself. So yeah,
Check it
so it's
out.
always good. Check it out. Check it out. So other than that though, Jonathan, as always, an absolute pleasure. And I'm sure you and I could have gone on for ages. So
Absolutely. We should do a
I
seminar together. We should do a retreat together or something.
should do what, sorry?
A retreat, a
Yes,
workshop.
yes, that would be fantastic. I would love
We'd have a good time. I don't know about anybody else.
Hey, yeah, we'd learn so much. Nobody else would learn anything. We'd learn
But you
so
know what?
much.
If you and I have a good time, the students will as well. That's the
Okay.
thing. You know,
Yeah,
if the trainers are enjoying themselves, then generally the audience will as well.
yeah. Bouncing our ideas. So all we've got to do is now find a suitable location so both men and women can go. Because my
Absolutely.
last one was just women, and it definitely wouldn't have been a space to be able to share with both men and women unless they were couples. So,
Right.
but it might not have been stress management.
Yeah, a whole different workshop.
Yeah, indeed. So but I would definitely love to have you back on the series too. So because so much to learn from you. So anyway, thank you again, Jonathan.
My pleasure.
And
Thanks for asking.
for anybody out there that has taken some great tips and advice from here, and you think that somebody else that you know might benefit from it, then please share. And of course, if you haven't had the opportunity to listen to any of the other podcasts, then check those out as well, because as we say, is that from everybody you can get so much great advice and guidance. And after all, we want everybody to thrive and shine beyond belief, because we're all limitless. So once again, Jonathan, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure. There you go. It's your time to shine. So, love it. Thank you, Jonathan.